This is quite a beautiful flower, Mark.
Yeah, it's clematis, this plant, and yeah, I'm really proud of it. It's a good-looking specimen this year.
Any favourites?
Yeah, probably the favourite of all the plants.
Well, we're here at Swarkestone Nursery with Mark Smith, and we're here for Green Fingertips, the July edition. Now, we're just here discussing clematis, is that the right?
That's right, yeah.
And tell us a bit more about it, Mark.
Well, this particular variety, this is probably the most well-known varieties of all clematis. This is Nelly Moser, and clematis is one of me. Well, it is now. It's one of my favourite subjects in all horticulture. I used to hate clematis because there used to be a lot of trouble, a lot of work, but I've come to love them. And somebody a couple of years ago said, "Oh, you can't grow clematis in a pot," and I wanted to prove them wrong. And
I think you have. I think you have.
Yeah, it's this is about 3 to 4 years old now, and as you can see, we've got flowers at the base to almost to the very, very top. It's still throwing out flower buds at the top now, but the thing is, with old traditional varieties of clematis, they notoriously always had bare patches and very, very woody stems at the base, and my idea was to try and grow them in a pot and get growth at the base to then produce flower.
Right.
I've done nothing special, just really done nothing special at all. I've planted the Nelly Moser in a basic multi-purpose compost. Make sure that it's free draining. It's actually growing up a obelisk here. This is a 6-foot obelisk. Normally, clematis Nelly Moser would grow to around about 12 to 15 feet, but this is actually contained, and it won't really grow much more than the 6 foot, which is nice. It's manageable. And what I do, I don't actually feed it, which is probably surprising to a lot of people. I only actually ever feed the Nelly Moser when the leaf goes yellow. Mm-hmm. A good indication of plant health is if the leaf is nice and green, looks really, really healthy, no need to feed at all. And if you don't feed, then it produces a lot more flowers. And as you can see from the very base, we've got flowers appearing here. And what I generally do as part of my maintenance, when I look at this for most days, I find a flower. Most people would see that as a perfectly good flower, but all I do is just nip it off and deadhead it, basically. That will encourage new growth to produce more flower.
Doesn't look bare. Like you say, it doesn't look bare at all.
No, and you can't actually see it but all the way round, it's got flower all the way around it. If you was to grow this traditionally against a wall, with a trellis against the wall, you would get flowers just on this side, and you're only getting 50% of the flowers or potential of the plant. But growing it this way, you're getting flowers right the way around the whole of the plant, and growing in a pot, it's easy to maintain. The only thing is, it just needs constant good watering. It doesn't like to be dried out at all.
How often watering?
At this time of year in July, it would need to be watered at least once a day, you know, with probably a gallon of water ideally. Once they're producing flowers and producing lots of growth, they start to need that water, and the leaf just droops a little bit, you know. But like I say, this is an old variety, a very, very old variety, still a great one. People do like the flowers, but they've always complained about this bareness in the on Nelly Moser. But the great thing, there's a lot more newer varieties out there that are actually bred for. There's actually bred for better flower, and actually bred to be flower at the base, so you don't have to give it any special care. Like I say, I'm not really giving this any special care, but there's a lot of pruning involved. What I will do with this one, once it's done the majority of its flowering, around about the end of July, August time, I would actually get some shears and shear it right the way as close to the obelisk as I can. It looks extremely bare, very, very woody at that point, but then all the new growth that comes out has got flower bud, and then this will carry on flowering right the way to the end of September, October time. Whereas if you read in the books, Nelly Moser flowers from June to July, but with a bit of careful pruning and brave pruning, you can get it flowering a lot longer.
So it is easy to manage?
It's an easy, a lot of people, I even thought they were very, very hard to look after years and years ago, but when you start getting into them and growing them properly, then you realise they're actually very, very easy. And instead of having this in a container, if you even not having it on a wall, you could actually use an obelisk in a mixed border in the garden and just having it grown up an obelisk, and so you've potentially got a 6-foot flowering shrub already ready done in your borders, and it's a lot quicker grown than buying a 6-foot flowering shrub there and then. I mentioned about these newer varieties.
Yeah.
And there are varieties that people traditionally ask for, things like Nelly Moser, Jackmanai, Dr. Rupel. Now they're all great varieties, but they do grow very, very tall, and they tend to be a little bit more work than the modern varieties. This is Dr. Rupel here, very, very similar.
Dr. Rupel.
Dr. Rupel.
Nice name.
It's very similar to the Nelly Moser, flowers the same sort of time, and it's an attractive plant. But and then there's another one here, which is Clematis tangutica, which is an unusual flower for a clematis because it has these nodding heads, flowers prolifically, but it gets quite large. This will get to about 20 foot, so there's a little bit more pruning involved with those, but that needs a sunny position like a lot of clematis.
20 foot, that's quite high for that, isn't it?
It is 20 foot. Most people, again, you get a lot of, with tangutica, without pruning, you tend to get a lot of bare growth up to 6 foot, and the rest is all growth and flower. So you need to have it at the back of a border ideally. But grown like this, you can have it just looking exactly the same as this, flower from the base right to the very top with a little bit of pruning. Another oldish variety, this is Clematis Florida Sieboldii. Gorgeous flower, purple centre, white outside. There's a lot of differences with clematis. This one produces a lot of flower, but you'll see in a second when I show you the other varieties. This is quite what's called a weak growing clematis. Very few stems, and the stems that it does have has a lot of flowers, but it's very weak, so you couldn't have this in a very windy position.
Right.
It just simply break on you. But absolutely gorgeous flower, very very fancy flower. I do like flowers that give you a little bit more than just a simple one colour flower. That's why I like the Nelly Moser.
Do all these need direct sunlight as well?
Well, no, they don't actually. If you give them direct sunlight all the time, flowers like, I've got this one here, which is called Rebecca. If you had these in very, very hot south-facing position sunlight, it would tend to bleach the flowers. So I fetch these out from outside. That one's bleached slightly. That's the true colour of the Rebecca, which is a really deep crimson, gorgeous, deep, deep colour. It's the best red clematis you can buy, actually, Rebecca. Only grows to 6 foot. It's a very, very new variety. But if you had it in full sun, it would bleach flowers. So sort of semi-shade is perfect. For these.
And could you grow that around an obelisk?
Absolutely, because it's the natural height of this is only 6 foot. That would actually be perfect for a container, grown in a container. And the one or two varieties that I'm going to show you, these are actually bred by a chappie that I know very, very well called Raymond Everson. And his stipulation when he's breeding clematis is that the must flower at the base, make it very, very easy for people to grow, and they get maximum amount of flowers. The second stipulation must be that it flowers from the first week of May right the way to the end of October, November time. So very, very long flowering, a lot longer than traditional varieties. And then it's the colour. And this one, actually, Rebecca, is named after his daughter. Apparently red is to match her temper.
Right, so we've moved over to the roses now. Mark, for an amateur gardener or beginning gardener, what's the best roses to choose?
Well, you've got three basic types of roses that you can choose from. The traditional, this is what's called a HT rose, a hybrid tea rose. And with a hybrid tea, it's what most people know of a rose. It's just a single flower, great for cutting, and it's like a show rose, a nice big flower. The second type is a Floribunda rose. Now, the difference between this and the HT rose is you get clusters of flowers, smaller flowers, but you get clusters of them. So when they open up, you get a feeling of a big show of flowers, but just on very, very small. And you see each individual flowering joint has probably 6, 7 different flowering buds there. So you get a similar sort of effect. Not a very good rose for cutting, but great for the garden. And the ones that we're standing next to here in the green pots are what's called a Old English type rose. Just carefully pull those out. And it doesn't really show much on this particular flower at the moment, but this is Darcy Bustle, which is a David Austin rose, which is like an Old English type. Lots more petals, a lot more flowery, very highly scented. These are becoming extremely popular now. The roses did go out of fashion, but they're just coming into fashion now. Lots of new varieties coming out with a strong scent. And also with the roses, if you wanted to, these are simply bush roses, but you have also got climbing roses. And there's 2 types of climbing rose. There's the traditional climbing rose, which is a stiff, upright, growing habit rose, which is great for going up against a wall or a fence or something like that. And then you've got a rambling type, which is very loose habit, similar to the Floribunda rose, where small flowers but masses of them, and that's great for going over an arch or a pergola or something where you need it to be a little bit more flexible. Mm-hmm. So they're your different types of rose.
And easy to manage?
Very, very easy. When you come to the point of choosing which type of rose that you want, you've got to do the soil preparation. Very, very easy. They don't like heavy clay soil. They will grow in clay soil eventually, but they need to develop a good root system. And to develop a good root system, you need to make sure that the soil is really, really well drained, very light, and dig it over. It doesn't want to be planted in simply clayey soils, sticky, heavy clay soils. The way that you can do that is add in sand or grit to make it a lot more drainage, free draining, or you can loosen it up by adding what you would see on the gardening programs, manure or homemade compost, something like that, just to add a bit of body to the soil. That would give your roses a great start.
And what about watering? How many times do you water?
Well, it really depends on the weather. I mean, at the moment we've got great weather. What we've also got is breeze, so that dries out the roses very, very easily. But a good tip actually to prevent black spot on roses is, if you are going to water in the morning. Don't water at night. Everybody says you must water plants at night to stop the scorch and things like that. But if you water roses in the morning, it gives the chances of the leaves to dry off, stops black spot forming, the fungus black spot forming on the roses. So always water roses in the morning and never do it at night. But as and when, they don't like to be dried out at all, because it affects the flowers. The petals start to fall off if they get dried out. But it's not the end of the world if they go brown. You can water and they'll reshoot. It won't kill the plant. They're very, very tough plants to keep. Very easy to look after. As they're growing, as you planted the rose in your prepared soil and it's starting to grow and it's starting to produce flower buds, check on greenfly. One of the key things that people moan about roses when they're growing roses is greenfly. All you do is just simply use a systemic insecticide. There's a couple on the market at the moment. Ultimate Bug Killers are a very, very good one. It's contact and systemic. The systemic action works in the plant, so when the greenfly try to attack the rose, it'll kill them instantly. And also, while the leaves forming in the spring next year, is spray with a fungicide to stop mildew, stop black spots, stop rust. If you spray on a fairly regular basis, it eliminates all those problems, and you get a much healthier rose.
So Matt, what other varieties have we got down here?
Well, these are personal favourites. These are, like I mentioned before, these are the David Austin, the Old English type roses, which are far more petals. But the great thing about David Austin, they're bred for scent, and Yeah, that's got an absolutely gorgeous scent to it. A lot of the, I'm not a fan of the HT roses because they claim that they have a scent to them, but you really have to use your imagination. But David Austin are actually bred for scent. Some of these are old favourites of David Austin. We've got the white Litchfield Angel, we've got the Mary Rose. This is a new one a couple of years ago, the one that we've just smelt, which is Queen Anne. Lots and lots of flowers, very healthy looking. These are not prone to black spots so much because it's bred out of them. A new one called Tranquility, which is a pure white, very, very neat, compact rose, great for a container. You know, you don't have to have it in the ground at all. We've got Royal Jubilee, which is a very, very rich pink. It's actually one of my favourite pinks. A lot of the David Austin roses tend to be of like a pastel pink, but that's quite a rich pink. We've got Lark Ascending. A lot of David Austin roses tend to have pinks and whites, but they do put in apricots and pinks, apricots and oranges into their selection. Another rich pink, we've got a Heathcliff here, which is, again, I like all the very, very rich colours, and the richer the colours, they seem to be really, really strongly scented. Heathcliff's a personal favourite of mine, and because they release certain roses each year, we've got 3 new ones for 2013, and these were actually recently released at Chelsea. We've got the Lady Gardener, which is a really nice variety, good rich colour, very compact grain, so it doesn't get leggy. You don't have to prune it, because that can be another issue with roses, pruning, and people worry about pruning roses. Thomas à Becket, another one like Heathcliff, very, very rich pink, almost luminous pinky purple. And then we've got the Caroline Knight there, which is another apricot-y orange there. Very good clusters of flowers, and that's actually a very good one for, because of the upright growth of the rose. It's great for flower arranging. You can actually snip that, leave it in your home. You get the scent in your home. It's great for flower arranging. Good varieties. Every year they breed new varieties, and scent is high on their priority. It is the number one thing they look for when they're producing new roses.
Right, Mark, I've noticed that the new sort of roses here are more expensive than the regular bush roses. Can you explain why that is?
Yeah, the regular bush roses are just ordinary roses where they've been found in somebody's garden, or they've produced a new colour and they've put it out to market. The David Austin rose goes through a much longer process. They take the seedling, which is then grafted, and then it's put on a parent plant, and that takes around about 4 years. And then once they're happy with the colour and the growth habit, then they put it into the trial gardens. Now that takes 5 years. Right. So in total 9 years of testing before that ever gets to go in your garden. And because there's that level of testing, and they need to do the testing to make sure it flowers right, it goes through several different winters, several different summers, gets all kinds of different weathers. Before it ever goes into your garden, they've just got to make sure it flowers really well, because you're paying a premium price, and because it's being looked after for 9 years, then it's a little bit like a bottle of wine. It's left to mature, and it is a little bit more pricey than something that's just taken off the conveyor belt. So there's a lot more testing involved into a David Austin rose, but they're very, very popular. People know they're getting good results from a David Austin rose, so people are quite happy to pay the bigger price.
I'm just thinking that's a long time, 9 years.
9 years, I think from a accountant's point of view, they wouldn't think you're actually making any money out of something that's been tested for 9 years. A lot of the technology these days isn't tested for 9 years, and it's you pay a lot more money for it. No, it's just something that David Austin has done over a long period of time. It's tradition with them, and they've got a very, very good reputation in here and abroad, because it's an international company, and it's well recognised. And to keep that reputation and that quality, you need to do the testing.
Right. And what other new variety of roses have we got?
Well, this year, 2013, these were released at Chelsea. Very, very lucky to have them, because usually you don't get them until sort of later on in the the season, October, November time. We've got the Lady Gardener, which is a gorgeous apricot, very, very rich colour for the apricots. They usually tend to be quite pastel, but it's quite a rich colour, and the growth habit is very, very compact, so it's great for a container. You don't have to have it in the garden, you can have it in a container. Doesn't get leggy, so there's very, very little pruning. So from a novice point of view, the Lady Gardener is a great variety. The next one we've got is a rich Thomas of Becket, which is a bit like the Heathcliff, very, very rich purpley red. Clusters and clusters of flowers, very strongly scented, upright growth, and a very, very showy, almost a luminous colour. It's incredible some of the colours they do produce. And lastly, we've got Caroline Knight here. Another apricot one, another rich one, slightly smaller flowers, but masses of them, a little bit like your Floribunda rose, but the flower multiples on one flower head. And upright growth, great for flower arranging. You can cut this, use it in the house, you get great scent in the house. Something that is a little bit more maintenance because it is an upright growing one, but again, pays you dividends. It's great variety.
Okay, and repeat flowering as well?
Repeat flowering as well. If you do prune them, you know, to take flowers off and bring in the house, you're actually benefiting the rose, because that will send up the new growth, which will then have more flower on. And if you're very, very careful and you prune on a fairly regular basis, including taking dead flower heads off, you can get these flowering up to October, November time. So from, say, the beginning of June right the way up to the end of October, November time, you're getting flowers in your garden, and likewise you can bring those into your house. So the HT roses tend to flower from June to September. So again, David Austin have got a longer flowering period than regular bush roses.
And did you say they need direct sunlight?
Ideally, the more sunlight you give them, the more flower you're going to get. Some varieties will grow in a shady position or semi-shade position, and you will get flowers, but generally, the more sun you give them, the more flower you're going to get.
Very informative chat on roses. Now, you mentioned earlier, Mark, about putting these in containers.
That's right.
Is that something you can do with all of them?
Yeah, you have to be careful about the height. You see, the Lady Gardener is only 3 foot tall, so if you want to just solely put that in a container, 3 foot's great for a rose. Just with a rose, actually, they need a tall pot rather than a wide pot. So you can have it quite narrow but very, very deep, because the roots on a rose go straight down rather than out, which is kind of unique with a rose. But yes, that one's ideal because it is a 3 foot high rose. But what I've done in a half barrel is put an obelisk up and put a climbing rose in the centre, another newish variety called Old Brighton Climber, which is a rambler type, big pink flowers. Put the obelisk in the centre with the climbing rose going up the top, and just round the outside I've put another type of rose in called a flower carpet rose of pink flowers. So you're getting colour around the base, because climbing roses tend to be very, very bare at the base and no flower and hardly any growth. So I decided to put a layer of ground cover roses around the base to give you flower at the base and then flower at the top. And that's in a half barrel, which is a nice big pot. Again, once they've rooted through, make sure you keep them well watered. With them being in the container, they dry out a lot easier than if they were in the ground.
Well, we noticed you did that with the clematis when we were talking about earlier on.
That's right.
Going around the obelisk.
Yeah.
You find that grows better around the obelisk?
I do. It gives you flower all the way around the plant. Around the obelisk, you get right the way around, so you're getting maximum amount of flower. With a climbing rose, if you've got it up against the wall, you've got the flowers coming out, but on an obelisk, you've got it going all the way around, so you're getting maximum amount of flower. You can actually use it as a feature. You can walk around it. It makes a really good feature, and I really like using obelisks. It's it's a good way of growing climbers in particular in containers.
So that's everything you need to know about roses. Right, where are we going next, Mark?
We're doing the plant of the month.
Plant of the month. What is the plant of the month for July?
Well, this month it's Alstroemeria, and the reason I've picked that is very, very easy growing plant to grow. It can grow in a container. It's the particular variety of Alstroemeria is the Princess series, which is a very compact growing variety. It doesn't get leggy at all. Only grows to about 2 foot high, about 2 foot spread. You can use it as a cut flower. It looks very exotic, and people do have it in bouquets and things like that because it does look very, very exotic. Right. But it's extremely hardy. It's actually a herbaceous perennial which dies back down to nothing in winter, but then comes up again in spring. The Princess series flowers from July or late June onwards right up to October, November time, so you're getting bags and bags of flower. Right. No pruning, no feeding, just simply plant, leave, keep well watered, so it's very, very easy plant to grow.
Looks very nice and colourful, doesn't it?
It is. There's a vast range of colours, whether it's oranges, reds, whites. There's some new varieties which has a variegated leaf and flower as well, so if you wanted, once the flowers have died off, you've got that variegated leaf to look at. A vast range of colours, so you're not just picking 2 or 3 different colours, there's lots and lots of different colours. A great plant, and one that anybody could have in their garden.
And again, is it easy to manage? Very
easy to manage. If you get the slight broken branch, just snip that off, it'll regrow, you get flower buds on that. It's always ideal to just take off the old flower bud, and that'll encourage new flower buds to form and more flowers. So extremely easy, just not very, it's from an amateur point of view, it's a great plant to grow.
So Matt, what are the jobs of the month for this month?
It's very straightforward this month, very few jobs. Simply, if you've got summer hanging baskets, you need to be deadheading those. A lot of the flowers will be going over now, starting to look a little bit drab. Take all of those off, it'd be more beneficial, you get more flowers. Likewise, the roses, if you're starting to get any dead roses, take all those off. So any flowering plants, deadhead is a very good job to do, very therapeutic job to do. And also, even though the weather's good at the moment, if we start to get any kind of rain at all, it encourages all the slugs and the snails. Just check for slug damage. A lot of the foliage is really nice and soft, especially herbaceous perennials, and if it does rain, then you'll get a lot of slugs and snails in your garden, so just check for slug and snail damage.
Right. If people want to get in touch with you in the future, how do they go about it?
Well, the normal way is by telephone, which is Derby 01332 700 800, or there's the email address, which is info@Swarkestone Nursery, remembering the E in swarkestonenursery.co.uk.
Oh, we've got to remember the E.
Got to remember the E. And also they can search for us on Facebook. Just simply search Swarkestone Nursery into Facebook, and you'll find our page where you can get in contact with us. There's also our website, which is www.swarkestonenursery.co.uk.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark, for that informative chat today. What we've got coming up next month, just a teaser?
I'm going to tease you actually, because it's all the new plants for next year. I've just recently been to a plant show which shows you all the very, very new plants. So Burton TV News will get an exclusive for all the new plants that you won't see until next year.
There you are, tune in next month, viewers, for that special. Thank you, Mark.